If you're a college player and you're a great college player, like Caitlin was.
And you thought this was going to be Paige, and instead it's Caitlin.
The delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players.
Gino, just say you're a UConn guy.
Caitlin Clark is buzzing as one of the best rookies in WNBA history.
Caitlin Clark is a superstar. Not a female superstar, she is a superstar.
She's not just average, she's incredibly talented, especially for her age and limited experience.
You already have a pretty high level of basketball, and then you add in a superstar in Caitlin Clark to the league, could be pretty dope.
One person saw her potential, Geno Auriemma.
Yeah, but she needs to be on a better team, and she needs to be more experienced. And that will come.
It can be upsetting when well-known people in basketball, especially fans of women's basketball, have misguided opinions.
But for these ridiculous fans who had her slotted as the next Diana, now they're out of their mind. And for these people that are waiting outside the bus for the Chicago Sky team, what the hell's wrong? What do we become, a third world soccer country?
So does Cheryl Swoops.
Every time Caitlin gets fouled, we can't make it seem like she was assaulted.
Although I won't mention any names, it's clear that others have also missed the point.
That I made those comments because I'm a racist. Like, first of all, black people can't be racist.
Let me share a quote from Gino Auriemma, a top expert on women's basketball. A few months ago, he was on Dan Patrick's show while the Fever were having a tough time. The timing was ironic because Caitlin Clark had just scored 30 points against the Washington Mystics that same night.
They have two different types of games.
Here's what Gino said. This kid's on the wrong team. She doesn't have the skills to handle the physicality in the league. This was said right after Caitlin Clark had just scored 30 points, and to emphasize, she had just reached her second 30-point game. Since then, Caitlin Clark has added another 30-point game to her achievements.
I think when your team wins and wins a lot, I think you draw a lot of attention to yourself.
At Gino's interview, Caitlin Clark had achieved 2. Remember, she's still a rookie.
You know, when people say, who's the best player? Well, who's the best team? I mean, that's as it happens in the pros, right? Who's the best player in the country? Who's the most valuable player in America? Well, let's go look at the best team and pick their best player.
This rookie class isn't even a top 10 of the last decade. Yet, he insists she's not tough enough for the league.
And had we kept winning, you know, I don't know that Paige would be any bigger or less talked about. And I don't know that she would have the kind of impact that Caitlin's had, because they have different personalities, different games. They approach the game differently, and it works for both of them. I don't know, but it would have been nice to find out.
He said she's not fast enough to avoid the physical play. Meanwhile, Gino, a UConn fan, expected Paige Bueckers to shine.
We are in a red-blue, and if you're red, you can't agree with blue. And if you're blue, you can't agree with red. Whereas most things are in the middle.
Caitlin Clark is the standout. Everyone believed the 2020 ESPN recruiting class was special.
So I think that'll be good for her. I find so much of the Caitlin Clark discussion is actually about the Caitlin Clark discussion and retroactively angry about why we weren't talking about the WNBA more then, but now we talk about it now, people get mad at that. So here's the thing. I think it is very clear what's happening. There's a little bit of rookie hazing, there's a little bit of jealousy, and like everything in America, there's a little bit of racial dynamics at play here too.
The 2020 ESPN 100 was notable, especially for Paige Bueckers. However, claiming Caitlin Clark was always better isn't entirely accurate. During high school, Clark was not considered superior to Bueckers.
If you're a college player and you're a great college player like Caitlin was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart.
Paige Bueckers was seen as one of the best guard recruits ever. She had no weaknesses, was a true game changer, and was the top prospect in the 2020 class.
There were actually odds on she's third or fourth in betting odds on being MVP of the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name.
She was truly exceptional. As a freshman, she outshone Ryan Howard to win the College Player of the Year award. Moreover, Paige earned MVP honors with Team USA teams, 2 years her senior.
Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning. So if you're a WNBA player, and believe me, I've coached the best, and I've pissed them off a lot, and they let me know about it. But they were tremendously disrespected. And none of them are going to say it, but human nature is, okay, this kid's coming into the league. And Diana said it best. This kid's in for a rude awakening.
She surpassed Ryan Howard, Jordan Horston, and Caitlin Clark. Indeed, Caitlin Clark has remarkable stats. With Lisa Bluter's guidance, she could become the best.
Yeah, and she's not quick enough to get away from the physicality. So there's a lot of learning curve, like Diana said. And when she gets it, she has elite skills that are going to really help.
I'm not doubting Caitlin Clark's potential. However, Lisa Bluter's influence is evident. Paige Bueckers in high school played as freely as Clark does now. After her first injury, Paige thrived under Geno Auriemma, showing more efficiency than Clark, despite having less responsibility.
I think she's handling great. I think she talks a lot of and she gets a lot of back. So she deserves everything she gets because she gives it as good as she gets it. She's just not built for the physicality of this league.
This class was exceptional, featuring 5 players likely to be top draft picks. Diamond Johnson is already in the WNBA. Haley Van Lith is set for next year's draft, though her position is uncertain. Meanwhile, Tahina Popa is expected to be a first-round pick. I can't see anyone else from this class dropping lower. It was a landmark class. However, the top UConn recruit fell short of expectations.
And if you're a WNBA player, if you're any kind of player, you're going to say, I'm going to make a statement. Targeted by society, targeted by her looks, targeted by her reputation, targeted by the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. There's a huge target on this kid's back. I thought Cameron Brink said something really smart. She said, no, they're expecting this rookie class to be perfect.
2016 was Sabrina Ionescu's year. Now, Gino Auriemma still praises Katie Lou Samuelson. I like her as a person, but her WNBA career hasn't been great.
And they all jumped over her, but they didn't read the whole thing that she said. But nobody's printing. You know, Diana Taurasi was right. This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league, and she's a rookie.
I'm confused by the Indiana Fever's decision to sign her. It's true you can't trade someone for being pregnant. However, giving a max contract after a year off for a baby seems strange. Before her break, she only averaged 5 points per game with the Sparks, yet she still got a max deal. Surprisingly, she's not even the best in her family. Her sister Carly is better. But then there's Auriemma. He's loyal to UConn.
This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years.
Nick Wright missed a key part of Geno Auriemma's quote. Auriemma claimed, "I've coached the best players in the league." This highlights the issue.
Gino Auriemma was on with my pal Dan Patrick a couple months ago when the Fever were struggling. And this was the quote. "This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality in the league, and she's a rookie. This rookie class isn't even one of the best classes in the last 10 years. She's just not built for the physicality of this league. She's not quick enough to get away from the physicality." End quote. Gino, just say you're a UConn guy.
We've seen this with Team USA selections. Geno Auriemma overlooked MVP Nneka Ogwumike, the champion, to pick Brianna Stewart from college. He will always choose a UConn player over others for Team USA.
What does bother me is some of the people I deeply respect, their basketball credentials, their basketball history, their commitment to basketball and women's basketball, I think have really not covered themselves in glory with some of this commentary.
This is a problem. Nick Wright is correct. Caitlin Clark didn't choose UConn. Moreover, Geno Auriemma's preferred guard style, which led to many national titles, no longer fits as well.
And I'm going to read you a quote, Colin, if I may, from, again, this person might know more about about women's basketball than any person who's ever lived, and that's Geno Auriemma.
These young players aren't learning that style anymore. Also, Geno Auriemma hasn't won a championship in 7 years. Meanwhile, Dawn Staley has surpassed him, becoming what he once was. Moreover, Auriemma has also lost to Caitlin Clark.
I have to congratulate Iowa on an incredible season. Awesome. And I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport. And it just is not going to stop here on the collegiate tour. But when she is the #1 pick in the WNBA draft, she's going to lift that league up as well. So Caitlin Clark, if you're out there, you are one of the GOATs of our games, that we appreciate you.
He lost to Caitlin Clark. Hannah Staley was at center, and Gabby Marshall guarded Paige Bueckers, despite Paige's 7-inch height advantage.
And you thought this was going to be Paige, and instead it's Caitlin.
Geno Auriemma might not be at his peak anymore, but he's still among the greatest coaches ever. A Hall of Famer, he's ranked among the best in college coaching and has certainly earned his salary at UConn. Yet, Nick Wright's point is valid.
The people don't want to get yelled at, so now all of a sudden we're doing participation trophies. Now all of a sudden we are going to try to pretend like Angel, who again is having a 91 out of 100 rookie season, is on par with Caitlin's rookie season, which is one of the greatest rookie seasons in the history of the league, if not the greatest.
Gino Auriemma appears to be stuck in his ways. It's not just that Caitlin Clark turned down UConn, her playing style also differs greatly from the typical WNBA approach.
I saw where you said the WNBA, they're targeting Caitlin Clark. What do you mean by how she's being guarded or, enforced?
I think you and I both know the landscape that we live in today, both sports-wise and non-sports-wise, right?
Some may argue that Caitlin Clark's style isn't suited for the WNBA, but defenders are struggling to keep up with her.
And it's just embarrassing. Guys, we have to be able to have honest conversations about sports, even if it goes against some of our priors or some of our allies on the internet.
Athletes who learned from coaches like Geno Auriemma and Dawn Staley, who preferred a more traditional WNBA style, are struggling to adapt. That style is like NBA basketball from 25 years ago.
Nobody with a straight face can say there is a real debate about who the most impactful or best rookie in women's basketball has been this year. It's Caitlin Clark.
No one can honestly debate this year's best rookie in women's basketball. It's Caitlin Clark.
But Caitlin Clark's arguably already one of the 5 best players in the league. Inarguably one of the 8 best players in the league.
It refers to Dan Hughes's contributions from 2 decades ago. His approach was innovative then. Now, however, the women's game appears to lag in strategy by about 25 years.
We got to be able to say that. There should be 2 unanimous awards in the WNBA this year. The MVP should be unanimously to A'ja Wilson, every single first place vote. And Rookie of the Year should be unanimously to Caitlin Clark, every single first place vote.
Next, let's talk about the Phoenix Mercury. They've sparked talk about Diana Taurasi possibly retiring. Taurasi is among basketball's best. The team tweeted, "If this is it, you have 2 more chances to see the greatest at home." This sparked varied responses. It got about 891 likes, hinting some fans might be doubtful. Now many are wondering, is this a real retirement hint or just a ticket sales tactic?
Obviously, a lot was made of this matchup between yourself and Diana Taurasi. I know she's one of your idols. How big is it for you to get a win here against her today?
I'm just happy we won. It was cool to play against her, and obviously a really great game. And like you said, this crowd was absolutely incredible.
Taurasi has faced retirement rumors before, and fans are eager to see her play one last time. Some speculate that the Mercury might be trying to build excitement for their last home games, while others are hoping for a championship run before she retires. I really want to see her end her career on a high note, but I doubt that's likely. I think she's set to play in the upcoming Olympics, though that might not be allowed. Let's be real. If this is it, her final home game will be in Los Angeles on Tuesday, September 17th.
You look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're going to come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time. Not saying that it's not going to translate, because when you're great at what you do, you're just going to get better. But there is going to be a transition period where you're going to have to give yourself some grace as a rookie. And, it might take a little bit longer for some people.
That game will be the Sparks' last home match of 2024. I can see her starting a retirement tour. By taking a lower salary, she could play another year. This would allow the team to bring in another top player. She'd be joining Skylar Diggins-Smith, Sophie Cunningham, Diamond DeShields, And Brittany Griner. I don't think she should keep playing, but she could. It's not impossible for Diana Taurasi to continue, though it might put the Mercury in a tough spot.
No, I think my favorite part about Dee is similar. She keeps it honest, she keeps it real. But we've been in so many scenarios, right? Whether it's living overseas together in Russia, playing against each other in the WNBA.
The Instagram live video, that was amazing.
Pop my cherry.
I wouldn't mind if Taurasi picked a different path. Considering her legacy is important, she's done a lot. I suggest she signs a minimum deal with the Indiana Fever. This would create a passing of the torch moment. Imagine Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi on the same team. Taurasi, coming off the bench in her final year, could chase a championship. This would boost her legacy.
It doesn't matter on our team. Now, the other coaches might say, well, you can do that because you got 3 other, All-Americans. I get that. I understand that. But I'd rather lose than watch kids play the way some kids play. I'd rather lose.
Imagine every game as a farewell tour with Caitlin Clark. Fans would be thrilled for Taurasi's goodbye. If Taurasi takes a low contract, they can keep Kelsey Mitchell and bring Taurasi off the bench.
Putting a team together just is fascinating because there's so many components. I mean, obviously, there's so much to learn.
I think you could. I think you will get that chance.
I mean,
I do think you will, if you want it.
Imagine her replacing Kelsey Mitchell or Caitlin Clark. Taurasi could even play point guard if she wanted. Now, picture a lineup with Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and likely Aaliyah Boston at power forward. Fans are curious about her retirement plans. Some think she's hinting at it, but I believe she's not ready to retire.
You have to show up.
571 times.
This doesn't happen if you don't show up consistently. And Sue has done that more than anyone. She shows up. She shows up during the off season, getting in the best shape possible to come back and be the best leader for her team. She shows up every single time. Oh, it's always great. Every year is a different journey. And I think that's the best thing about being in a team sport.
Some think she announced her retirement 10 days early to boost ticket sales. Maybe she wants to join another team like the Chicago Sky. However, leaving the Mercury seems unlikely. Since the Olympic break, she's averaged 13.2 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 2.8 assists per game. Clearly, she's still playing at an all-star level.
When you have training camp in the city, you practice and then everyone goes and they're busy. But, we're going to be in San Diego for 5 days and really get to know each other. We have a brand new group, and I think it'll be a great opportunity to get to know each other and start, building chemistry as a team.
Considering her performance this season, she has a strong chance of making the all-star team next year. While retiring on a high note might seem attractive to some, I wonder how high this season actually ranks, particularly given that she's currently a 7th seed overall. I just don't think she's done yet. For months, we've heard nothing but skepticism from ESPN about Clark's ability to hang in the WNBA. They questioned her shooting, her defense, even her leadership. But now they're falling over themselves to crown her the next big thing. Now, if you've been following the WNBA this season, you know Clark's been making waves. But what's really interesting is how the ESPN narrative around her has shifted. Let's break it down.
Aces not looking the way that they were. Asia Wilson is a little bit banged up, while they say it's not serious. And even the Liberty, who are not playing their best despite still winning as well.
All right, let's pause here for a second. Did you catch that? They're not just rattling off stats anymore. They're framing it as history. This is a far cry from the skepticism we've seen in the past. Remember when critics were questioning whether Clark's game would translate to the pro level? Well, it seems like those doubts are fading fast.
More history. 10 consecutive games now for Caitlin, hitting at least 3 shots from long distance. Longest streak in history.
There it is again. History. It's like they can't say it enough. Now, don't get me wrong, these are impressive stats, but the enthusiasm here is palpable. It's almost as if they're trying to make up for lost time. Let's not forget, it wasn't too long ago that some of these same hosts were questioning Clark's ability to maintain her college-level production in the WNBA.
From long distance, longest streak in history. She's now the 3rd player in W history to reach 300 assists in a season. The only ones that have done that, Alyssa Thomas, Courtney Vandersloot. More history, more history. But this, to me, is why you should feel good about that dream game. Aaliyah Boston.
1 for 30.
300 assists in a season? That's elite company, folks. We're talking about a rookie here, putting up numbers that veterans dream of. But what's really striking is how the tone has changed. It's not just acknowledgement anymore, it's celebration. Now, let's take a step back for a moment. Why is this shift so significant? Well, it speaks to a larger issue in sports media. There's often a tendency to be overly critical of highly hyped prospects, almost as if they're expected to fail. Clark came into the league with a lot of expectations, and initially it seemed like some were almost eager to see her stumble. But here's the thing about great players, they force you to change your mind. They make you eat your words. And that's exactly what we're seeing here with Caitlin Clark.
As important as Alyssa Smith coming off the bench has been, they need Aaliyah Boston.
Mm-hmm. Now, this clip is interesting for a different reason. They're acknowledging Clark's importance, sure, but they're also highlighting her teammates. This is a more balanced view than we've seen before. It's recognition that while Clark is a star, basketball is still a team sport. This is actually a really important point. Early in the season, there was a lot of focus on Clark as an individual, almost to the exclusion of her teammates. But as the season has progressed, we're seeing a more nuanced discussion. They're talking about how Clark fits into the team, how she elevates her teammates. This is the kind of analysis we should have been seeing from the start.
They're in an absolute tailspin right now, especially Angel Reese. She's done for the season. But the Dream are a desperate team, and when people get desperate, they will do anything. They will pull out all of the stops, and that's why we saw the Dream have a lead.
See that? They're not just praising individual performances now, but the team's resilience. It's like they've finally decided to give the Fever, and Clark, their due respect. This is a crucial point. Early in the season, there was a lot of talk about how Clark might struggle on a rebuilding team, but what we're seeing now is recognition that she's not just putting up good numbers, she's helping to change the culture of the team. This is the kind of impact that truly special players have. They don't just perform well individually, they make everyone around them better. They help their team overcome adversity. And it seems like the folks at ESPN are finally starting to recognize this about Clark.
In place, clicking at the right time, that again, it's not going to surprise me, the Fever winning a first-round series, even if it is against Napheesa Collier, who came on in the second half.
Now we're getting to the heart of it. They're not just talking about Clark's individual brilliance anymore. They're talking about her ability to elevate her teammates. This is a complete 180 from the criticism we've heard in the past. Remember early in the season when there were questions about how Clark would mesh with Aaliyah Boston? Some were even suggesting there might be tension between the two stars. But what we're seeing now is recognition that these two aren't competing. They're complementing each other, and Clark's playmaking ability is a big part of that. This is the kind of analysis we should have been getting from the start. Instead of looking for potential conflicts or weaknesses, why weren't we talking about the potential of this pairing? It's a reminder that sometimes media narratives can miss the forest for the trees. Now let's talk about why this matters. It's not just about Caitlin Clark, or even about the Indiana Fever. This shift in narrative speaks to a larger issue in how we talk about sports, especially women's sports. There's often a tendency to be overly critical, to look for flaws rather than potential. We see this especially with highly hyped prospects. It's almost as if there's an eagerness to say, "I told you so," if they struggle. But this approach does a disservice not just to the athletes, but to the fans as well. What we should be doing is providing balanced, thoughtful analysis. Yes, point out areas for improvement, but also recognize potential, celebrate achievements, and provide context. This is especially important in the WNBA, a league that's still growing and deserves nuanced, insightful coverage. The shift we're seeing in how ESPN talks about Caitlin Clark is a step in the right direction, but it also serves as a reminder of how far we still have to go. Why did it take half a season of stellar play to get here? Why weren't we getting this level of analysis from the start? It's also worth noting that this isn't just about Clark. Every player in the WNBA deserves this level of thoughtful coverage. We should be talking about the nuances of their games, their impacts on their teams, their growth and development. This is how we build fan engagement, how we grow the sport. So, while it's great to see ESPN finally giving Clark her due, let's use this as a launching point for better coverage across the board. Let's demand more insightful analysis, more nuanced discussions, more recognition of the incredible talent in this league. And for Caitlin Clark? Well, she's shown that the best way to change narratives is to let your game do the talking. She hasn't just lived up to the hype, she's exceeded it. She's forced even her harshest critics to reevaluate their stance. And in doing so, she's not just changing minds about herself, she's changing how we talk about rookies, about the WNBA, about women's sports in general. As we move forward in this WNBA season, let's keep this in mind. Let's challenge ourselves to provide and demand better coverage. Let's celebrate the incredible talents in this league, not just when they force us to, but from day one. Because players like Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and so many others deserve nothing less. The WNBA playoffs are right around the corner, and tensions are higher than ever. Teams are battling it out for those crucial playoff spots, and every game counts. It's in this high-stakes atmosphere that ESPN decided to drop some bombshells about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever.
This is what the WNBA standings look like right now. 7 of the top 8 teams have clinched their playoff appearance. Number 8 is still very much up for grabs. The teams that you see 8 through 11 could all end up in that final spot. LA is no longer eligible for the playoffs.
Now, before we jump into the juicy details, let's set the scene. As you can see from these standings, the WNBA playoffs are right around the corner, and tensions are higher than ever. Teams are battling it out for those crucial playoff spots, and every game counts. It's in this high-stakes atmosphere that ESPN decided to drop some bombshells about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. But here's where things get interesting. When you actually listen to what the ESPN analysts are saying, it's like they're reading from a completely different script. Instead of the hate fest we were expecting, we're hearing nothing but praise for Clark and her team. Talk about a plot twist.
Well, I think the New York Liberty, y'all, they are in a do-or-die situation. I think it's their year. I like the way that they are playing. They've got 4 players that are scoring double digits. Sabrina Ionescu is having a fantastic year in terms of taking the next leap in her game. And frankly, due to contracts, if they don't get it done this year, I'm not sure how that's going to go as you look forward in terms of the future of this organization.
Let's break down what's really going on here. The ESPN panel, featuring experts like Monica and Carolyn, start off by discussing the current WNBA standings. As you just heard, they're all business, talking about which teams have clinched playoff spots and who's still fighting for that last coveted position. But then something unexpected happens.
In the bottom half, I think that Indiana is a problem.
Yeah.
And the way that they are playing as of late, when you look at the numbers of what Caitlin Clark...
When asked about the most dangerous team in the lower playoff seeds, Carolyn doesn't hesitate for a second. She points straight to the Indiana Fever, and guess who's at the center of her praise? That's right, Caitlin Clark herself. Now, if ESPN was really hating on Clark, you'd expect them to downplay her abilities or focus on her weaknesses. But that's not what we're hearing at all. Instead, Carolyn goes on a full-blown hype train for Clark and the Fever.
Has done her improvement in how she has adjusted to the speed of the game, and her players have gotten used to playing with her. She knows how to lay it out on a dime.
She's practically gushing about Clark's improvement since joining the league and how she's adapted to the pro game's speed. But wait, it gets even better. Carolyn starts breaking down Clark's game in detail, and let me tell you, it's nothing short of glowing.
Her court vision is impeccable, and now her teammates are ready to catch the ball. They trust she's going to get it where it needs to be. But y'all, the favorite part of my game from Caitlin Clark is this behind the back pass. Come on now. I love it.
Just look at that behind the back pass. Carolyn calls it out specifically, saying how much she loves seeing Clark pull off this flashy yet effective play. Now, if you're like me, you're probably scratching your head at this point. Where's all this supposed hate we were promised? Because all I'm hearing is an ESPN analyst absolutely raving about Caitlin Clark's skills and impact on the game.
2 of those highlights, I believe, were a Clark-Boston connection. Those 2 have been the second best scoring duo in the league behind A'ja Wilson and Jackie Young. It has been so incredibly efficient.
But the Clark love fest doesn't end there. The panel goes on to discuss how Clark has developed an incredible on-court connection with her teammate, Aaliyah Boston. They point out that this dynamic duo has become the second best scoring tandem in the entire league. The only pair that's outscoring them, A'ja Wilson and Jackie Young, who are absolute powerhouses in their own right. That's some elite company Clark is keeping, and ESPN is making sure everyone knows it. What's really interesting is how the analysts talk about the chemistry between Clark and her teammates. They mention that Clark's teammates have gotten used to playing with her unique style. They trust that when Clark has the ball, she's going to find them in the perfect spot for a score. That's not just good basketball. That's leadership and team building at its finest.
The numbers bear it out. They've been on terrific tear since the All-Star break, but it also looks like they're playing with joy. They are gelling and having fun.
The panel even goes as far as to say that the Fever are playing with joy and gelling and having fun. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that doesn't sound like criticism to me. It sounds like ESPN is painting a picture of a team that's coming together at just the right time, with Caitlin Clark as the catalyst for their success.
Kelsey Mitchell, 25 points a game in August, had 25 in her game in September. You better watch out for her. And Lexi Hall in the starting lineup. That's a defender they need.
So fun to watch right now.
But here's where things get really interesting. The analysts aren't just focusing on Clark's offensive prowess. They're quick to point out how her presence on the court is making her teammates better. They specifically mention Kelsey Mitchell, who's been on an absolute tear lately, averaging 25 points per game in August. And let's not forget about Lexi Hall, who's been making waves in the starting lineup with her defensive skills.
I thought we could have came out with a little more energy. I thought we seemed a little bit flat. And I don't think that wasn't because of we felt complacent with already being in the playoffs or anything like that. I'm just not sure if our energy was quite where it needed to be. And I thought we could have picked that up a little bit better. We weren't always on the same page, and I think that kind of started from the beginning. We didn't really play with as much pace as we usually do at moments. We definitely did. But I didn't think it was consistent throughout the game. And then obviously we could have taken care of the ball a little bit better. I think, we win by 10 to 15, maybe even more than that if we just take better care of the ball. So I think something you go back and watch, and we know on Friday we got to come out with a lot more energy.
We got low, then we'll go in the back to Don.
Earlier. Last week, Coach was talking about the improvement of the team. She cited toughness and maturity has come out in the last month since the Olympic break and those practices. Do you feel like this fourth quarter was an example of that, where you got challenged, you made some runs, but you couldn't put them away, but you had to fight them off again?
I think in the course of the season, it's about making sure that you're able to close out games. There were some games that we lost at the beginning of the season because our fourth quarter wasn't great. And so even going into this fourth quarter, you just emphasize that, listen, this is the fourth quarter, 10 more minutes. We have to give it all our best. We knew that they weren't just going to lay down and let us take the game. And so just making sure that if they score, then we have to score and then get a stop. And that's really our mindset, especially in that fourth quarter.
Go down, then we'll go with Keem on the right.
For both of you, just 6 straight home games, including tonight, to get that homestand started off with a win, knowing how well you played already the second half. Crazy environment every night here. How's that feel to get that homestand started out right, knowing that you're just going to be here at home for so long?
I think it's important. These are games you really need to win at home, and the more we can win, the better we can position ourselves for the playoffs. So, and also we're just a competitive group of individuals. Like, nobody wants to lose. That's not fun, especially in front of these fans. That a lot of them, they only get to see the Fever play one time. They spend a lot of money to come here and watch us and have fun with us. So, you want to kind of give them a show every single time we're in here. And honestly, it's a lot of fun. So, don't take that for granted, because before we know it, the season will be over. And I think this team is just trying to go one game at a time. But to get the homestand started off on the right note, I think was super important. And it's just continuing to go one step at a time and continue to build that confidence. But I feel like we're playing really good inside this building. So it's just continuing to build on that.
Go with Keem, then we'll go with James again.
And just kind of following up on Kristen's question earlier, just when the turnovers start to kind of mount and build, what is said, or what do you guys do to kind of refocus and get back on the same page?
We get straight to it. We say we need to take care of the ball. I feel like that's as simple as it is. We know what we have to do, and most of the times it's silly mistakes. So making sure that we just pay attention, make sure that we're ready for it. But at the end of the day, just take care of the ball, make a good decision with it.
We go James, and we'll go on Zoom.
Caitlin played 40 minutes tonight, entire game. Obviously, probably wasn't the plan, but how do you assess how you feel throughout the game? And do you ever ask to come out, or how did that go?
No, I like sprinting. I already told you guys. I don't know. I feel like finding a balance of when to conserve my energy within the game and playing with pace at the same time. I think there's times where you can pick and choose. I think I've done better at that, and I think even over the last stretch, the coaches found good minutes where I could get a quick breather. That becomes very important, especially in the fourth. But I felt tonight, I felt really good and could go the whole stretch. But it's never really, they don't really ask me. It's not really my choice. It's more so I know what they're thinking and what we need in the moment. So Yeah, I mean, I could probably go play another 40 minutes. I don't usually like to stop, so.
We got George on Zoom, then we'll finish with Mike.
George Goy from the Just Take Goy Sports Podcast. Caitlin, many rookies struggle to find both team and individual success in the rookie year. LeBron, Peyton Manning, and Connor Bedard did not make the playoffs in their rookie season.